What's the best exercise for knee pain? That question comes up constantly for me, whether it's text messages, personal training sessions, consultations, friends, coworkers, you name it. And I get it. It feels like the right question to ask. You're in pain, you want to do something about it, and you just want to know what to do next. But here's the thing. That question, the way that it's framed, the assumptions underneath it, that question is most of the reason that people stay stuck. So in this video, I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to show you why asking that question is actually working against you, and I'm going to show you the questions to ask instead. Because once you change the question, the path forward becomes a lot clearer. Here's how most people approach a painful joint. Let's say it's knee pain from running or playing basketball, or shoulder pain after the bench press. You go into Google, you look up best exercises for knee pain. Maybe you check Reddit, YouTube, a website from a physical therapist that you've heard of. Take one or two of those exercises, throw them into what you're doing already, do those exercises for a week or two. Nothing changes. Maybe things get a little bit better, but then you're right back to where you started. Does that sound familiar? The reason that cycle keeps repeating isn't because you found the wrong list of exercises. It's because the assumption lying underneath the entire approach is wrong. The assumption is that exercises are just like medicine. You have a bunch of different pills to choose from. Maybe you choose this pill, pick a couple of them, take them once a week, and then things hopefully get better. But your training program isn't medicine, it's a system. And if that system is what created the problem in the first place, which it usually is, at least in part, then adding a few exercises isn't going to fix the problem. It's just going to add noise. Think about it this way. You've got a training week. You do squats, runs, deadlifts, basketball, whatever it is during the week. That program has been putting a certain type of stress on your knee for months and years. And somewhere along the way, your knee's ability to handle that stress didn't keep up with the demand, and now it hurts. You add a few exercises to your training session, but everything else stays the same. The same movements, the same loads, the same gaps. You've essentially put a band-aid on a training program that's creating the problem in the first place. And it didn't just initially create that problem, it's still continuing to add to that problem. And here's what I want you to really remember. It's really hard to train your way out of joint pain using the same approach that got you there. Now, that's not a knock on anyone who's been in that cycle before. I've been there. That's just how the logic works. The problem isn't the exercise you pick. It's the framework that you're using to pick them. So if picking exercises isn't the move, then what is? Here's the flip. Instead of asking, what's the best exercise for this joint? Ask yourself, what are the movements and positions that this joint is responsible for? Now that is a completely different question, and it leads you somewhere completely different as well. Here's what I mean. Joints don't have good exercises and bad exercises. They have movements, a set of things that they can do, a set of directions that they can go, a set of positions that they can be loaded in. And either those movements are being trained systematically, progressively with load, or they aren't. Now, to make this concrete, I'm going to use the wrist as an example, which is a joint that is pretty quickly neglected by people, and people don't really get into the details about it. Here are all the movements that the wrist covers. You've got flexion, pulling your palm to your arm, extension, pulling your wrist the other direction, radial deviation, tilting your hand to the thumb side, ulnar deviation, tilting your hand to the pinky side, and then pronation and supination, which is the rotating of your palms up or down. The pronation and supination is more of a movement at the elbow joint, but it matters for the wrist as well. And then there's the ability to handle load in each of those movements and positions, not just to sit there passively, but to actually handle load. That right there was 6 different capacities that the wrist has. Each one can be tested measurably. Each one can be trained over time. Each position can be improved. Now here's the mindset shift. For most people with wrist pain, they would just say, I have bad wrists. But that right there is just a complaint. It's not a training target. There's nothing that you can do with that information. But instead, if you say, I have weak wrist extension on my right side, and I have weak wrist flexion on my left-hand side, now you've got something. You have a specific limitation in a specific position on a specific limb. You can build a training target around that. You can measure it. You can work on it. You can look to improve it. That right there is a system. And this relates directly to the core idea that you will continue to see me direct to in all of my videos and content. Pain and injury happen when the demands that are placed on a joint exceed that joint's current ability to handle them. The solution isn't to avoid the demands, like icing it or resting it. The solution is to improve the ability. But you can't raise any ability that you can't measure. And you can't measure it if you don't know what it is. A movement system is how you figure out what that it is. Now let's talk about pain for a second, because I don't want to be dismissive of it as a metric. Pain is real information. When a specific joint hurts when placed under load, that's your body telling you something. It's not weakness, it's not a mental hill to get over, it's a signal from the body. And using pain as a guide, backing off when something starts to hurt and progressing again when things don't hurt anymore, it's not a bad instinct. The problem isn't using pain as a metric. It's treating pain-free as the finish line. When someone gets hurt and they go through rehab or certain exercises to make it feel better and stop hurting throughout the day, usually when the pain goes away, they stop. They feel better, so they stop the exercises that they were doing for a joint. They go back to the normal training that they were doing, because why would I keep training if it feels better? But being pain-free isn't the ceiling for you. It should be the floor. Think about it this way. Being pain-free as you are means that your body has hit the bare minimum ability that it needs to be able to move through your life without something going wrong. It doesn't mean that your body is necessarily resilient. It could just be coping. And here's the thing. Life isn't controlled either. Think about what actually happens in life. You're playing basketball with some friends, and you play a couple extra games than you were planning on. You land weird from a jump. You're picking up something heavier than you normally would. You twist a weird direction when getting up out of bed. This stuff is just life. But if your ability is just sitting right at the edge of the demands of life, as soon as you tip over it when something goes wrong, that pain's going to come right back. And even worse, it could produce a new injury. What we're looking to build for in the long term isn't just getting out of pain in the short term. You think about it as bulletproofing. We're building ability far beyond the demands of daily life so that when the unpredictable stuff happens, and it will happen, it won't break you. The goal isn't to make life more predictable. It's to make your body more robust so that it can handle the things in life that you can't predict. That distinction between training to be pain-free and training to be bulletproof, that's the whole game. And that's the reason why you can't just stop when it stops hurting. Okay, so we've established that we need a system, not just a couple of hand-picked exercises. And we've also established that we need to build the ability of our joints far above demand, not just to get pain-free. So what actually makes a good movement system? What should you be looking for? I'm going to walk through 5 things. These aren't arbitrary. Each one addresses a way that typical rehab or training often falls short. The first one is to train all of the possible movements and positions of the joint. And I mean all of them. If the joint can go somewhere, then you should train there. Every range, direction, and relevant position under load. That sounds obvious, but almost no one actually does this. Most rehab protocols just hit the 2 or 3 main movements that you can think of and just stop there. And the movements that get missed are the ones that likely matter the most, because they're the ones that are most quickly neglected and are most likely to become the weakest link in your body. Number 2, a good movement system puts the joint in positions where it cannot compensate. This one's subtle, but it's huge. Our bodies are really good at compensating. It's always trying to figure out how it can get from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. And if there's some dysfunction going on in your body, it would much rather find another way to get from point A to point B than to actually facilitate change in your tissues. If you can shift your weight, hike your hip, or shrug your shoulder for a particular movement, you're going to do it every time, no matter how hard you try to prevent it. A good movement system uses exercises and joint positions that are practically impossible to compensate. And that forces the weak link in your joint to do all of the work. Number 3, a good movement system is objective and measurable. I can't say this enough, but I feel better is not a training metric. How much better? Better compared to what? Better under what conditions? You need real numbers. Reps, load, range of motion. If you can't measure it, you can't really manage it. And if you can't manage it, you can't really be sure that it's improving. Number 4, a good movement system has exercises that are trainable through a range of motion under load. Static holds have their place, and other exercises that are isometric in nature, where the joint doesn't really change in position, can be helpful in certain ways. But a lot of those exercises are designed in a way where the only way you can really get better is by how long you can do it. And on top of that, if load only meets your joints in a fixed position, it's not going to be prepared to handle the loads that it takes on in daily life. Real life loads you in transition, mid-step, mid-cut, mid-landing. The system has to train the joint to handle force as it moves through space. And number 5 is that a good movement system scales to any level. This is the one that surprises people the most. The same movement system should be applied both to someone who's in their 80s and also to the highest level athletes. The movements themselves don't change. The joint is still doing the same things. Whether you're 80 or you're in the NFL, your wrist still flexes, extends, deviates, pronates, and supinates. The primary change is just the load and the range of motion. So what we do is we find exercises that can be scaled to any level. You find where you are, you start there, and you build. And that's it. There's no special program for beginners. There's no ceiling for advanced athletes. It's one system that has infinite scale. Each one of these criteria is honestly worth its own video. And so I'm working on building that out and going into depth on how to actually practically do each of these things. But I wanted to go ahead and lay all of that out in front of you so that you can see the whole picture and see how it all fits together. So let's go back to that initial question that we started with. What's the best exercise for knee pain? Here's the real answer. The best exercise is one that addresses a specific movement gap for a specific person at their specific ability and level. There is no universal answer, number one best exercise for a particular joint. That's why you see so many different exercises employed by so many different people and lots of different people all getting to the same place in different ways. And exercises are better than others in certain ways, but the ways that they're better are the ways that they apply the principles that I just talked about earlier. From my point of view, an exercise that's more scalable is better than an exercise that's less scalable. So we're not talking about a universal exercise or a universal answer, but we are talking about a universal process. You map out the joint, you identify the gaps, you train those gaps systematically with load progressing over time, and you don't just stop when you're pain-free, you keep going and you build a robust joint. And that's what this channel and business is ultimately about. It's not about quick fixes. It's not about the number one exercise for every joint. It's about building a framework that teaches you how to build your body up to handle the demands of life. If you've been stuck in the pain, rehab, and back to pain cycle, drop a comment. Let me know what joint, how long it's been going on, and what you've tried. I want to see those things, and it'll help shape what kind of content I make next. And if this video shifted your framework in any way to how you approach pain, send this to someone who you think might need this. That's the best way to support what we're building here. I'll see you guys in the next one.